After authentication, we can start sending requests to a system. But don't get me wrong, authentication does not mean free access to a complete system. An employee card doesn't give you access to all organization premises. In the same way, when you access a corporate computer with your credentials, you are not allowed to access other users' files or applications. If you try something like that, you will probably get a system prompt that tells you that you are not authorized to execute such operation. Authorization deals with what happens after you are authenticated and is also known as access control. Generally speaking, access control works in the following way. A user wants to perform an operation over a certain resource. The access to the resource is governed by what we call an access control policy. This policy defines a set of rules that allow the access control system to determine if the identity is allowed to execute the operation over the resource. If the policy determines that the user has the right to perform that operation over the resource, the system will proceed with the operation. If not, the operation will be cancelled. Some access control models won't take into account the operation, while others will require additional information to grant or deny access to the resource. Let's see some examples of them. Under discretionary access control, each resource has an owner which decides the access rights to the resource. The owner can grant or revoke access or even transfer the ownership of the resource to other users. A good example of discretionary access control system is the Unix file system. In Unix, each file is owned by a user. Owners can grant or revoke access rights to their own files and even transfer the ownerships of those files to other users. In mandatory access control, access rights are assigned centrally. Users can access resources as stated in the policy. However, they don't own resources, so they cannot transfer access rights or modify the ownership of the resource. Employee access cards are an example of mandatory access control model. The organization decides which premises can be accessed by the employee, but the employee has no way to transfer those rights to other users. Finally, in role-based access control, users are assigned to different roles based on their job functions. Then, each role is assigned with specific permissions. In this way, the management of access rights is a matter of just assigning appropriate roles for each user in the system. This kind of access control makes it very easy to add or modify user access rights when they change departments within the same organization. The security of a system greatly depends on the access control model and the access control policy. If the access control model selected does not fit the scenario, no access control policy will be able to avoid dangerous operations over resources. For example, a web server that doesn't differentiate reading from writing operations may enable visitors to replace and delete any web page. However, this should only be allowed for the administrators of the website. On the other hand, if the access control model is right, but the policy is not well defined, some identities may be able to perform operations they shouldn't. This can happen with a file system when other users are given read permissions over other users' files. Access control and authorization are used to decide whether grant or denied access to resources. Nowadays, there are many access control models like discretionary, mandatory, and role-based access controls. It is up to us to decide which model adapts better to your needs. However, having a proper access control model and access control policy is a key point to enforce the security of a system or organization.